was so excited.
It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielson, Matt Cassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Two Guys and a Goalie. Dustin Nielson with you. Gager with you as well. We are presented to you by GS Construction. No cast today as he is on a little work/vacation trip down to the United States of America. So what is this? Pit stop, pals, with Dusty and Gager? What's going on, buddy?
It might be a little bit. It might be a little MCTV podcast.
Yes. Did you? Well, actually, that's a real good idea. You know, it is the middle of the summer. I do have a lot of stuff. I'm not a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm kind of exaggerating, but we'll get to your big mamas and papas headlines. You got that Oilers trade. We'll get to Byfield, Pavelski, some other things there. Hire it or fire it for GS Construction as well. But I don't know if you listen. Do you listen? So we both love AMC TV podcast with Mark Pajot and Corey Graham. Did you listen to their Monday news dump?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it's a good one. I don't listen to all of it because I haven't started the Bears season 3 yet.
Oh.
So I don't want to get any of that ruined. Tammy's catching up. She's partway through season 2 now, so we're almost there. But they broke down the Brave New World trailer. That trailer's good, and then they broke down the Gladiator trailer. And Gladiator 2. Have you seen that Gladiator 2 trailer?
I haven't. I've seen little snippets, but
you got to go watch that trailer, buddy.
Whole thing.
Yeah, it looks real nice. Real nice.
The Brave New World trailer looks.
I'm not familiar with Red Hulk.
Yeah, so essentially, it's the name's escaping me, but the guy that was chasing the Hulk that whole time
in the very first one. Okay.
Yeah, he becomes
like the general or one of the.
Yeah, the general.
Okay.
Who is Harrison Ford?
So Harrison Ford's going to become Red Hulk.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Did not have 81-year-old Harrison Ford becoming Red Hulk in the Marvel universe, but here we are.
Running like Indiana Jones. It'll be great. It'll be awesome.
That'll be good. In order to scare Red Hulk, you just have to hold up a snake. Be like, what? Oh my God. But yeah, that if you're into movies or comics or TV, we very much recommend the MCTV podcast with Mark and Corey. I mean, it runs on our station once a week as well. So we like to mix it in, give those guys some love.
I had to go. Well, I had to go pick up my daughter in Calgary, and I'd listened to all the EST stuff, and it's brutal. My attention span's so short now, and from everything. But I was thinking, I must have sat in my car for like 20 minutes trying to figure out what am I going to put on for the drive, and I threw that one on, Dusty, and it was the recapping of episode 5
of the Acolyte.
And those guys knocked it completely out of the park. Like I was riveted for that whole podcasting episode. It's a great podcast. Those guys do. You can tell they're veterans.
They're professional broadcasters. Yes.
Yeah. So you can tell right away because I've listened to fanboy podcasts and there's a distinct difference with those two guys going at it because they play off each other. There's a structure to everything. They hit on all the key points. It was well done, boys. Well done.
It's a good show. Make sure you check it out. They've got me very fired up for Deadpool and Wolverine. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited for that. And you know what else I was also looking at because I'm flying to Regina on Thursday this week, and I'm looking at possibly catching a late afternoon viewing of Twisters. in Regina. I really want to see Twisters. I have no time ever to go to the movies here because when I'm here, I don't want to go to the movie because I get like 3.5, 4 days a week with my kids. So I'm like, I want to be home with them, and then I'm gone. And I was like, you know what? I might just take a cab to a movie theater in Regina this week and watch Twisters because I think it looks real good. That looks real nice.
Well, this weekend it must have been on every channel. Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton.
I watched it last week, start to finish. Yeah. I love that first movie, man. Like, I think it's extremely well done. They just did. So like when I don't consume a lot of podcast content just because we're always so busy creating it ourselves. But I listen to MCTV podcast. I've recently started listening to the Rewatchables with Bill Simmons, and they just did Twister. So that's a good one. If you want to go listen to it, it's like an hour and 40 minutes. It's actually technically, I think, longer than the movie when it's all said and done. But that's a great podcast. And then I listen to the CBS Fantasy Football podcast, and I'm dabbling Smartless a little bit. But most of that takes up any sort of free. Oh, and the Locked On Lakers podcast because I always got to know what's happening with LBJ. But that's about it. But those that Twister episode of the Rewatchables is real good if you want to dive into that. Yeah, real nice. Real good. All right, look, we do have some hockey to get to, but any other nerd stuff? Like, have you liked where Acolyte has gone?
See, I don't know. I think Trev and I haven't talked to any other people about it, not even you, Dusty, but I love it. I think it's a unique view, and I don't want to ruin it for everyone, but I think it paints the Jedi in a completely different light, and just the beginnings of kind of the Sith, and it hasn't really touched on it, but I've read, I've nerded out with books, and I go, oh, okay, and there's subtle things that are said that go, oh, that's kind of alluding to what I've read previously. I think it's awesome. It's a completely different view. Yeah,
it's a fresh story for me. Like, it's a fresh story for me, and sometimes I don't really want to get sucked into the stuff I'm not super familiar with, but this has been well done. This has been well done. Like, I look forward to the next episode.
Yeah.
I think I'm completely up to date. I usually watch them when I fly, and I think what are we on, 6 or 7 now?
I think it's 8, isn't it?
Is it 8? Okay.
The last episode.
Okay, so I haven't watched 7 yet. I have to watch 7, and then I'll get to 8. But I've liked it so far. Penner's Pancakes is in over in the Nasty Chat, says the new and final Cobra Kai season starts on Thursday. Right. I will say, when the last Cobra Kai season came out, I absolutely destroyed that. I can't remember when that dropped, but I watched the whole thing in like 3 days. So, I mean, it's not a brilliant show by any stretch of the imagination, but I grew up with those characters, so I'm fully invested in the Cobra Kai verse. If that's what Mark and Corey would call it, I think. So I tried to do the same, and it's good. James says, there's 8 episodes. The finale is tonight of The Acolyte. So I don't know, maybe I'll pick up on that. All right, Two Guys, a Goalie, presented by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years with quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has a foundation built on teamwork. Now they want you to become a part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca, click Ready to Work, or just visit their page at Indeed.ca, and that'll get you to where you need to be as well. And remember, with their Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it can be a career. So go work with Sandman over at GS Construction. It was funny. Now I remember I was driving into work this morning at 5:10ish, and there was a GS Construction dump truck right next to me. And I turned the one corner to come on to 170th to head up and around Mayfield up to work. And where Badass Jaxes and Earls and stuff on that corner. Mm-hmm. And I go to turn, and usually you take the inside lane, you can kind of pop ahead. And I was like, it's a dump truck. I'm going to fly in front of this guy, get in front of him by the light. Turn the corner. This dump truck was right side by side. I was like, damn, this dump truck has a place to go. I was very impressed. I got him on the next light. I was like, see you later, sucker. Boom, gone. But I was pretty impressed. So shout out to that dump truck driver from GS Construction who was out there this morning getting your grind on just after 5 o'clock. I appreciate that one. Connor Hagan over on the Nasty Chat says, guys, any love for The Boys? Here, you watch The Boys?
Oh,
I did first season of The Boys. I haven't done anything since the first season of The Boys. Not that I hated it. I love the Elizabeth Shue parts, but I haven't kept up to date on that one.
It's my favorite superhero
Really?
series right
Oh
now.
wow.
Oh yeah. It crushes everything else, Dusty.
Did it stay super vulgar? Yeah. Okay. Because in that first season, I was like, "Holy smokes! Like this show's not messing around here." Like,
yeah. No, that's they've gone to the next level with definitely download that for the planes. You might want blinders on it.
I won't be crying at any point.
No, I don't think so. Laughter maybe, but you won't be crying. Yeah, it's the only show that I like to load the chamber. Like I think I watched the first 2, and now I haven't watched any because I want to watch them all in succession. And I've blocked all notifications of it from all my devices, so no one can spoil anything from me. But you'll love that thing. You do need to start watching that, Dusty, because Homelander is arguably the greatest villain since Darth Vader.
Seriously?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like, if season 1 was he not a good guy, or was I misreading season 1? Do I not remember season 1? Like, but I must have to go back and watch it. I might be confusing it with the show. Remember Heroes? Remember when Heroes came out back in the day?
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. But I like the first season of Heroes. That was a good one too. I did have a tearful moment on the plane coming home this past weekend. And this is going to sound really weird because I'm a huge LeBron guy. Everybody in the world knows this. But I do love that movie Air. Because I'm also big Ben Affleck and Matt Damon guys, and they're both in it, and they're both brilliant in it. And I had my laptop out. I got upgraded. I fly enough with like all the TSN guys fly Air Canada because they want the Aeroplan points, and I'm like, I get it. Like I love those Aeroplan points too, but Air Canada doesn't go direct to Regina or Winnipeg, and I just don't want to spend every single bloody weekend of my entire half my year going through Calgary and waiting for 2 hours and connecting. So I'm the WestJet guy. I'm like the whole crew. I'm like, see you guys there. I'm going direct. Like, for example, on Saturday morning, like 4 people got up for a 5:30 flight that went through Vancouver to come to Edmonton. They're like, what flight are you on? I said, I'm taking the direct at 2 p.m. I'm sleeping in. Like, I don't know why you guys are so hard on for the Air Canada points. So I was on WestJet, and because I fly WestJet so much, I've got nice status there. So I got upgraded. So I'm sitting in the front. I had enough room. I got my computer out, and I got my iPad up, and I'm watching Air on the iPad, and I'm doing some Edmonton Sports Talk work. And I think this is the second time it happened. I've watched Air almost as much as I watch Blackberry. Like, they're 2 of my go-to movies to have on while I do work now. And when Matt Damon comes out of the room and looks at the whole staff and is like, we got Jordan, and everybody's like so happy. I started to tear up a bit. I was just like, damn it, these airplanes, they're killing me. I hate Michael Jordan. How am I crying? But I was like, Damon wanted MJ so bad. I was just like, he did it. Like, what a story. What a story.
It's age, Dusty. It's definitely age. Like, you give me a good TikTok clip and I'm in tears.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. I mean, I'm only 43. It's not like I'm 60, for goodness sakes. But I was just.
It gets worse, man.
He wanted him so bad, and he got him. I was just like, good for you, man. Like,
that's a solid movie.
Even with Adidas and Converse, like, you still got him. So it was, I tried. A couple weeks ago, it's a different one. I can't remember what it was, but I cried then too. I was just like, man, I got to stop watching these movies. Oh, actually, you know what it was? This is sad too. This was on the way out last week because I was on 3 flights last week. The way out last week, I cried at the end of Endgame when Tony Stark said, I am Iron Man. And he snapped his finger, and I was just like, damn it, he sacrificed himself for everybody. Like, he's got a daughter at home. Like, yeah. So, I mean, I'll pretty much cry on an airplane to any movie that I watch. It's tough. It's a tough one.
I gotta get you a real sad one to watch. This would be great.
Oh man, I can't even imagine that. Like, I could be watching like Billy Madison, and at the end I'd be like, he proved his dad that he is a man and he can lead. Like, it's not good.
Imagine if you watched like The Notebook or something.
Oh my god, can't do it. I literally cry to anything I watch on a plane. It's pretty sad. Pretty sad. All right, let's get into your bigger and hotter headlines for Big Mama's and Papa's Pizzeria. BMPP is a real pizzeria restaurant, not just a delivery pizza chain serving authentic Italian cuisine with their made in-house pizza dough, traditional tomato sauce, and fresh toppings. Each pizza is cooked to perfection, a pizza experience you've been waiting for. Visit them at 12848 97th Street. Order today at www.bmpp.ca or call 587-746-0550. If you are listening on TuneIn or iHeart right now, of course, you can text us any questions you have about it. It's a quiet time in the National Hockey League right now. The Oilers did provide us with a little bit of a trade to discuss, but you can text us anytime, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999, or hit us up over in the Nasty Chat as well. It is the bigger and hotter headlines. Have to start with the fact that the Edmonton Oilers yesterday, maybe trying to sneak this in before the Chris Jones news broke, so they might get lost in the cycle, but Xavier Bourgault traded. Chiasson goes with them. They bring back Roby, not Robbie, Roby from the Ottawa Senators yesterday in a. And I thought it was an interesting deal. Two prospects here. We had a great guest on Oil Stream yesterday, Ross Levitan. If you want to go back and check it out, it's not very often I'm like, damn, you're really good at this. And I wasn't kidding when I was like, if this dude lived in Edmonton, we would try to find a way to give him a job. Like he was an absolutely great host. But Roby Jarventie, we talked about him a little bit yesterday, and just two guys that both organizations just want to use the spot to get a look at somebody else. Gager, like, I don't know how impactful this really ends up being for either team. I love the fact that the Oilers got an extra pick out of it for a team that's, short on picks right now. I feel like it's a nice piece of work for Jeff Jackson, who wasn't around when they drafted Bourgault. And obviously the reports on Bourgault is, let's go take a look at somebody else right now.
Yeah, and like I said this morning, Dusty, sometimes just, you're in the same organization as a young player and in the minor league system trying to break through. And, the Oilers are not a team of past years where you probably would have got more looks. This is a very established lineup where most of the guys that if you're going to be replaced by anyone, it's someone that's sitting in the press box that might not be playing at the current moment. And you kind of run out of runway as a minor leaguer. I saw it tons where guys, really good hockey players, but they just couldn't, either there was a log jam at their position or inconsistent play is tough. The meat grinder of the American Hockey League is something not really talked about much. We should almost have an American Hockey League day where we just talk about the things that we've gone through and how difficult it is, right? Like the trying to every night is a showcase, not only for your own organization, but for other organizations too.
Because you don't care where the shot comes, right? Like you just want an opportunity somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to every night you have to prove, because there's eyes on you. I mean, it's different from when I played. Now you can actually, scouts can access footage and just isolate your shifts, right? Every single shift. So, and then there's if they're there, they're looking at other things other than your play, your body language on the bench. You don't have a good shift, you get scored on, how you're interacting with players, all these types of things. So it gets more and more difficult and to try to make that jump. And sometimes maybe just a fresh start. You're going to a new building, new organization. There's subtleties of everyone's camp that operate a little bit differently. Can be good for a player. I know when I went to Washington Capitals camp, I had only been at Edmonton. It was run completely different. It was, this is how they do things here. It was just little things that made it fresh and exciting. So all the best, but Oilers, by all accounts, got a pretty good player coming back too, right?
Yeah. Like Roby, yesterday, Ross told us that they did their prospect rankings for Locked On Sens, which is a good show. Check it out on all your podcasting platforms, Locked On Senators, in February, and Jarventie was their fifth best prospect. Now you add another draft class to that, and it moves bodies around. But he said yesterday, like it was. I'm paraphrasing here, but he said he was kind of surprised by the deal because Jarventie's a very skilled player. Like he was a little bit surprised that they decided to move off of him. Now he had a knee injury back in November. I do believe somebody texted in today and said that he played in January, but Levitan yesterday did say that he thought he hadn't played since November, and a pretty significant knee injury, so he's just trying to get back on the ice now. So, but I mean, that doesn't matter to me. Like, he's 21. No. There's zero rush for him to make an impact on this team. And if you think he's got a higher upside or is a better fit than Xavier Bourgault, why would you not pull the trigger on this when you're also moving out another contract and getting a pick back, right? It doesn't seem like a no-brainer to me.
Well, pick, another asset.
Yeah.
I'm looking more short-term with a lot of these assets too, Dusty, where
can you use them at the deadline type of thing?
Deadline, or just navigating the cap to start the season too, with prospects or something to sweeten the pot for a possible deals to be made. Oilers still got some work to do, but again, what Jeff Jackson has done this summer is amazing up to this point, Dusty. I mean, just this last little hurdle, I think, is going to be difficult. But if he can have another, a double or a triple hit on this last little piece, man, what a summer that you can actually win the like GM of the year in the summertime. Like he's the front runner for GM.
I mean, if he gets a Draisaitl contract done, it's his piece de resistance, or however that is.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm using that correctly, but I mean that would be the chocolate sauce on top of the cherry that's on top of the ice cream sundae. If he can pull something like that off. Yeah. Like that thing, right? So yeah, it was an interesting trade in Ottawa and Edmonton. Nobody else outside of the market, I think, would have really given two you-know-whats about this deal. I did have here on my notes, as we continue with your bigger and hotter headlines for Big Mama's and Papa's Pizzeria, I did have it on the notes, and you talked about it a little bit. Like, my question was, how difficult is it to emerge from the American Hockey League when all the players are probably very close to the same level, Gage? You're like, in a lot of those situations, do you think it just comes down to production? Or do you think there's more that goes into it nowadays?
Oh, I think there's a lot more now, just with how stats are calculated. Like the analytics of it all are probably a big portion of what the directors of player personnel and scouts are looking at to take that next step. And it's opportunity too. There's not. Basically, you're looking for an injury to get a call up, and if you're usually a top, you're counted on offensively on your American Hockey League team. Usually, that means you're getting thrust into a bottom six role where you're not too, you don't play that role too much in the American League. So there's a subtle adjustment that needs to be done, and there's a lot of guys, Dusty, that play in that, are offensively gifted players that it just doesn't translate into the NHL. The defensemen are smarter. The goalies are better. The physicality is different. That transition. So you have to, as a player, you have to figure out, how am I going to be successful at that next level? And it doesn't, just because you're a scorer in the American League doesn't mean that's the player that you're going to be in the NHL. There's that much of a jump from skill wise. And, again, there's that mental side. You hear guys are maybe they're fifth on the depth chart. So a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of guys get the person that gets called up maybe isn't the top performer of the team, but he was a first round pick or a second round pick or part of a huge trade, right? So it makes the organization look a lot better that their prospects are progressing on the right path. So there's another thing you have to deal with. It's tough, man. That is one tough road, that American Hockey League trying to break through. It's again, there should be a documentary on this, because you'd have a lot more appreciation of those teams and what they have to go through, especially when guys can break through eventually. That's the feel good story.
Like, it's there, right? Like, it's there for the taking. I'm always fascinated. Like you get the you get like the Stankovens who come up just recently off the top of my head, one great year and you're boom. Okay. This guy's NHL right. It's the guys who are there for 4 or 5 years that are trying to make an NHL roster at like 27, 28 that I think are just very intriguing stories.
Well,
I think that's great stuff.
We had a guy here like Vinny Darnay. Like
that's a good point.
Grind that he went through, to not quit. That's why we'd never really had anything bad to say about him. There was some issues with foot speed, but he corrected a lot of that, I think, in last off season. His decision making changed. You get better when you play with NHL caliber players too, Dusty. So his curve jumped a lot. But then we said like Leon Draisaitl. I remember when he got sent to the minors, right? Because it was just he looked completely out of place as a young player. But what did he do? There's different beasts too. Like he went down there, lit it up for a bit, got called up, and made it impossible for them to send him back down, and he never looked back. Right. So even with a great one of the greatest players in the game today, there was some hiccups earlier on where he had to figure things out. But it was it was a lot quicker than most.
780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. JR from Calgary is in. I think he's referring back to the Bourgault trade. He says, terrible trade, no upside on this dealio. But there really wasn't much upside with Bourgault on the other side either at this point. I mean, you saw what you had to see from. I mean, we can say that there's limited upside on both sides for these teams, but I mean, I don't think you describe it as a terrible trade. The Oilers did not get fleeced in this situation. Jarventie had more goals in 22 games than Bourgault did the entire season in the American League last year. So I thought it was a pretty nice piece of work. Anything else on that, Gager? I mean,
No. The other thing, it reminded me for some reason, someone complaining. The Barn Burner podcast. You had mentioned it. I think
the Broberg offer sheet. Save it. I got it for Fire It or Hire.
Oh,
save it.
okay.
Of course, we're gonna get to that. We don't need to.
All
yeah,
right.
we're gonna get to that for sure. I see some of you with some questions over in the nasty chat. That's great. We'll get to those. Hammer more in there. If you're watching on YouTube, hammer the thumbs up for us. And we're now less than 30 subs away from 9,500 over on YouTube as well. So give us a sub over there. Quentin Byfield gets a 5-year deal, $6.25 million. Takes him up to, and I'm still learning my way around Puckpedia. I've got to, it takes him up to being an unrestricted free agent, I think, when he's 26. But this is a real good value at 6.25 for the Kings for the next 5 years. I mean, you're either going to lose him or you're going to have to pay through your teeth in 5 years. But I like this deal right now for the Kings.
He's gotten a lot better, right? Again, very tough to figure out how to be successful at the NHL level. But I think at the start of the series, he looked quite good. Like I was like, ooh, he kind of tailed off at the end of it a little bit. But this guy's a player, Dusty. Like some of the stuff he can take over a game at certain points. Selfishly, I would have loved to have seen him with a younger Kopitar to see how those two would dominate. But yeah, 6'5". That's a really good deal for this guy because he's arguably going to be the centerpiece of the Kings moving forward from this as a younger player, right? I think they need to get a little bit younger, obviously, but he is that's good. At least for Rob Blake. He's done something right in the last couple of years.
That's right. But when he's becoming a UFA at 26, we're going to sit back and go, what were they thinking? Because, I mean, if you're Byfield, if you actually get to unrestricted free agency at 26, you're going to get a blank check from somebody.
But don't you think this way, at least if things don't really progress, and I don't,
he's already cashing in 31 mil on this deal, right?
Yeah, but it kind of saves them if he falls flat on his face, and they just couldn't have another Pierre-Luc Dubois situation, Dusty, where they're looking to unload this guy after a season because he hasn't performed, right? This kind of softens the blow if if things don't go perfect for Byfield next season.
780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Thank you very much for listening to Edmonton Sports Talk today. Tell your friends. It's Two Guys and a Goalie presented by GS Construction. We are in the bigger and hotter headlines for Big Mama's and Papa's Pizzeria. Joe Pavelski announcing his retirement. Gager, hell of a career for Pavelski. It's pretty good run for Joe Pavelski.
Yeah, I'm always saddened a little bit when I see great players not win the Stanley Cup.
I've got a list of guys who've done it, so we can discuss that. I was prepared for this, but
okay. Yeah, it bothers me. I believe he was the last pick in the draft, was he not?
Was he the last pick? I think he was. I think he was down there. Close. Let's see. This is a sec. I got it right here. Oh no, he was 205, but that was when the draft was a lot.
Oh, okay.
The draft was. He went 205th in round. So I was in round 7. That was in a 9-round draft. So, yeah. Okay, but I mean, he was. Okay. Let me see who else. Brodziak was drafted after him. Played 917 games.
Wow.
Tobias Enstrom was drafted after him. Dustin Bufflin was taken in the 8th round that year. Shane O'Brien, and then in the 9th round that year, Matt Molson played 650. Tanner Glass, Yarrow Halak. Troy Bodie.
Wow.
I remember Nick Tarnasky. He played for the Lethbridge Hurricanes. And then Brian Elliott, actually, of all people. Brian Elliott was the second last pick in that draft.
Really?
Ended up playing 543 games between the pipes.
I mean, for goalies, I think it's different because they progress. Everyone progresses at a different level.
Yeah.
I think you can still get you can find a diamond in the rough a lot easier, I think, in later rounds. Look no further than 109th overall back in 1992 with the Edmonton Oilers.
Joaquin Gage.
But for players, man, I'd love to see stats on. That's a really good draft. Or maybe that's something for later in the summer.
Yeah,
Jesse. We look at drafts where
draft recap. I like it.
Well, in certain rounds, what's the percentage of, say, 6-rounders that actually go on to successful NHL careers? I guess we'd have to have criteria.
Yeah,
maybe 300 games or something like that.
I'm looking at this 5th round just because, or the 6th round. I have the 6th round up from that year. So these guys would have been drafted in the round ahead of Pavelski. Mark Mathot, 624 games. Bruno Gervais, 418. Nate Thompson, 844. Drew Miller, 571, and that's it. So 4 guys.
Yeah. And I mean, you could probably look to the 1st round, and it could almost be identical. Well, maybe a few more.
Actually, what's crazy is just to play this little game. In the 4th round, which is 2 rounds ahead of the 6th round that we just did, Biz Nasty played 202 games, became a bigger star once he left the league. Corey Potter played 130. And Kyle Quincy played 586. Jan Hayda played 627. So only 4 guys in the 4th round also would fit the criteria.
Kind of shows you the how good a scouting staff has to be. Like, you have to be able to put together a really good group of people that can find those players. It's not always about the bright and shiny of the 1st round, right? You're really looking for those types of players that maybe could make a difference. I know my son's friend Hunter St. Martin got drafted to Florida, right? And he's a skilled guy that I think at times plays in the top 6 in Medicine Hat, but then has a different role as a checker too. So, which I think is a benefit. You know, this finding out what makes you successful younger can really help when you get thrust into some roles at the higher levels. So, hopefully Oilers can find some guys like that. I think that's one of the things that they've been missing over the last, I could say decade, is not being able to find serviceable NHL players in the later rounds. There hasn't been anyone being able to break through.
Okay, here are the other guys that were all-stars that never ended up getting it. And I would think all the guys I'm about to list off had better careers than Joe Pavelski, but they didn't end up with Stanley Cups. Aginla, Adam Oates, Matt Sundin, could be location where he played, but still. Rest in peace to Dale Hawerchuk, who was an absolutely phenomenal talent, never got his hands on a Stanley Cup. Mike Gardner played for basically 50 bloody years, never won a Stanley Cup. Paul Stastny never won a Stanley Cup. Pierre Turgeon never won a Stanley Cup. Like, those are very good players that never ended up getting to raise a Stanley Cup along the way. However, the one thing you don't see on that list, and this is why Connor McDavid delivers a Stanley Cup at some point, generational talents have always found a way to win. I mean, it's just, that's just how it is, Gager. Like, they just, and like, Ovi's only got one, but he got one. Mm-hmm. All these other guys that you look at in the top 10, top 15 of all time have all delivered Stanley Cups at some point in the career. For some of them, Steve Yzerman, Alexander Ovechkin, it took longer than others. Some guys like Wayne Gretzky and Sidney Crosby were able to kind of come in and win one in the first 4 or 5 years. But as good as those guys are, and those are Hall of Famers, there's no generational talent that's ever played in this league and has not delivered a Stanley Cup championship somewhere along the way. So, hey, sit tight, Oilers fans. It's coming. It's coming.
I can't believe you're putting that much pressure on Connor McDavid right now. Sorry, Connor.
I know the wedding's coming up. I know you're getting married this month, but I mean, the bottom line is generational talents deliver titles. And they will. I mean, he will. He will deliver a championship to this city, preferably. But somewhere along the way, that guy's getting a Stanley Cup. I mean, he's just too good not to. Too good not to.
Yeah. I mean, you could. I don't know if you put him in generational talent, but you could say the same about Leon. You know, he's so good. You know, but maybe he falls into he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Leon will. I'm pretty confident of that. Maybe not first ballot, but I look to him as like an Yzerman kind of type. You know, I could put those guys in the same category.
Yeah, he could find himself. There's a long way to go with Leon Draisaitl, right? So, all right, there you go. That's the bigger, hotter headlines for Big Mamas and Papa's Pizzeria. Let's slide into Hire It or Fire It, where I will dish out the take, and Gage will either hire it or fire it. You can play along at home. I did say we will get to some of your questions over in the comment section on YouTube, so just keep those coming in. We will get to those, and if you're not yet subbed to the channel, whether you're watching live or on one of the archive shows after the fact, very close to 9,500 subs. So hammer that thumbs up for us. That would be great. Actually, quickly, just to follow up before we get to Hired or Fired, I do see this one question. And one of the other guys on the list I did not mention, but there's two goalies here, Henrik Lundqvist and Roberto Luongo. I mean, two guys that were really, really good for a long, long, long time. Luongo didn't get the cup till he was in the front office with the champions this year, and Lundqvist never got one. And I think we talked about it a few times. I think Lundqvist won one Vezina, and Luongo never did, which is just... I mean, I wonder if we just overrated him a little bit along the way because he played for Team Canada a few times. But the fact that Roberto Luongo never won a Vezina trophy, some of you might be listening to this first time and like being like, hell no, he didn't. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But he did. He didn't win one, which is just, that's wild to me.
He was like a finalist every single year.
He was always in there, but there's always like some other guy who just had a career year and you're just like, well, how can you not give it to this guy? So, yeah. That's a good one. Okay, this is a good point too. Lance says, was Eric Lindros considered a generational talent who didn't deliver a Stanley Cup? The problem there is that his injury was his career was derailed by injuries. If Eric Lindros stays healthy, that dude delivers a Stanley Cup. Didn't he take the Flyers to a final like 4 years in? Yeah. 3 or 4 years in? Like, he got screwed by injuries big time. So
he just it unfortunately for him and his brother, they were prone to concussions. Some people just have tougher melons, I think. And I mean, Eric even said it. The biggest problem for him in junior was he was a man as a 15.
He was a freak.
Right? He was 6'4", 220 at 16. Like, he didn't have to lift his hand up, because he was just running over guys.
Yeah.
You get to the NHL, all of a sudden and it was different there. The point of contact was usually the head. If a guy's head was down, that's what guys looked for back then, right?
Yeah.
That was considered.
And
a
they
clean
see
hit.
this big guy, they're like, "This is my only chance to get you." Actually, right?
Yeah, and we've talked about it so much, Dusty. Who we'd like to see most in today's game, right? Eric Lindros, definitely one of the players I would love to see in the game.
I just want to go back and watch some of his games from like 92 and 93 and 94, just to like pre-injury Eric Lindros was a generational talent. I believe that.
It was so different. It was so different. Like even the play was way like clutching, grabbing, hooking, holding, hitting, and he dominated in that era physically, right? Like he was bull
in China shop. That's what that was.
Yeah, it was so scary, especially when we played in the old Spectrum against the Legion of Doom line, and the boards, like they were like wrestling ring ropes where they would just bend. And that Legion of Doom line with him, Leclerc, and Renberg.
Oh boy!
Like I think it was
Renberg was like 6'3". He's the smallest guy on that line.
Yeah, and he was 6'3", 215 or something like that. And it was a joke. They would dump in, and you could hear the crowd just like, oh, and they knew just a massive hit was coming, and they'd run you out of the rink. It was glorious. Yeah, if he was in the game today, it would be very interesting to see a guy with that size, that skill level, and that ferociousness.
There's nobody plays the game like that today. Not a single person in the league. Like you can't. There's no comparable to early 20s Eric Lindros in the National Hockey League today. There isn't. It's just not even close. All right, let's get the Hire It or Fire It here, presented by GS Construction, the presenting sponsor of Two Guys and Goalie. GS Construction, hiring now because they're hiring all the time. Become a part of their team today at gsconstruction.ca or just visit their page on Indeed. For the past 50 years, the foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction today. Jeff Skinner should start the year on McDavid's wing. Hire it or fire it.
Fire it. Let's not. I'm saying that he might start there, but let's not put a guy up there in July. Okay, we all saw what happened to Connor Brown. We waited months for this guy to score. Okay, it's going to be Connor and Zach Hyman, and we'll see after camp who fits in there.
It's Skinner. It's Skinner. I've got him on both of my first line match of the year. Like,
God, I mean, it would be great. And to see that type of finish.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Zach Hyman scores a lot of goals from inside the paint. I realize that. But there's certain points where, and you could see it. I mean, I always wanted to have a podcast right after a few of his goals because he's becoming a really savvy goal scorer where you watch the follow through. Like a lot of guys just coming down shooting as hard as they can. He's actually putting the puck in places where he knows it's going to be difficult for the goalies to make a save. Like he's actually I think he's taking a little bit off his shot for proper placement than just trying to beat goalies clean with hammering shots. So, but then you got Skinner, a guy that can, this guy can beat goalies from distance on a regular basis, not only in tight with some pretty slick skill. So,
I had a call with one of our clients today, and one of the people on the call was telling me today. He's like, I played with Skinner growing up. He goes and before he goes, he is a big game player. He goes, he's just never got to play in a big game in the National Hockey League. He goes, but growing up, he was as clutch as they came as we were growing up, and I was just like, good to know. Good to know. So, he hasn't played a playoff game yet by all accounts. On the way up, as he was playing on the way up, he was a big game guy. So, let's see it. Let's see it at the next level. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited for this season. Still a couple months away, but, man, it's going to be great.
That's going to be neat to see. How jacked is he going to be? I mean, regular season, Rogers Place, it's sometimes it's a living room, but it does ramp.
It's like the Nuge rolling into the playoffs in 2017. After not getting a chance to play in it for over half a decade. This is even longer. This is the longer wait. This is that Well, I was gonna use a dirty reference, but I'm not gonna use a dirty reference. I don't want Cass to look back on the episode later and be, guys, what were you doing?
Language.
Yeah. The Calgary Flames will finish dead last in the Pacific this season. Hire it or fire it. Remember, San Jose is in the division. Anaheim is in the division.
Well, I'm gonna fire it. They're better than those two teams, with a caveat saying that if they're more worried about sewering the Oilers than on their own team. That brings us to the next question on hire it or fire it for GS Construction. The Oilers should be worried about someone signing Broberg to an offer sheet. Hire it or fire it. Fire it. Fire it. I don't like if they're going to throw $2 million at Broberg. That's
the conversation in Calgary was talking about like over $4 million.
Yeah, 4.5. Are you kidding me? This guy played, a couple good playoff series and finally dug himself out of the hole. This is what I was kind of alluding to in the AHL. You got to, Cass would say mom's spaghetti at this point, right? Like taking advantage of your opportunity. Broberg did it. He's going to get a really good look in camp. But he's got to perform. He's still got to he's got to have the same type of play just from what he's not been able to accomplish in the past. But look, if they get rid of Broberg, I don't know the whole structure of an offer sheet. It all depends on how many picks you get back. I think that puts the Oilers in a great position, actually, if they all of a sudden have way more assets in first round picks that they can use to sweeten the pot with another deal. But I also like them keeping Broberg. I think there's a player there. So it's win-win in both situations.
Yeah, I said, I don't know if it was on Oil Stream or Nielsen's show yesterday, but to me, the offer sheet conversation is just for guys that have nothing else to talk about. Like there's been two offer sheets signed in the last 10 years. And one was the Habs going after Sebastian Aho, which I did love at the time. He would have been a great fit as a Hab, would have been amazing. But then the next year, it was just like a spite offer sheet of Kotkaniemi between the two same teams. And I'm like, that's it. Like, that's the only time we've ever had to talk about this for the last decade. And now all of a sudden, Broberg is going to sign one? Like, I don't see it, man. I don't see it.
It would be great if the compensation wasn't as so heavy. Like they made it almost impossible to have offer sheets, Dusty. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If it was a little bit less, then you might see it. But let's face it, these guys go down to Boca Raton or La Boca Vista or whatever, and they sit there with their cigars and Johnny Walker Blue and say, "Hey guys, easy on the offer sheets.
Don't do this to us. We don't want to do it to you either."
If you do it, expect it right back.
And that's what happened, right? Like that's the only situation. Like that's
Well, even when wasn't it Anaheim too, right? With Kevin Lowe and
it was Brian Burke. It was Brian Burke and Kevin Lowe.
Brian Burke was they were all measuring with offer sheets there too. So it doesn't happen.
All right, final one for hire it or fire it. So here are the numbers on these two guys in this question. One guy played 1,332 games, had 476 goals and 1,068 points. The other guy played 1,286 games, had 413 goals and 992 points. So similar production. But if you're starting a team today, you would rather have Joe Pavelski for his career over Phil Kessel for his career.
Oh.
Hire it or fire it. And just so you know,
are there
Pavelski's the guy who had 476 goals and 1,068 points in 1332. The War Pig, 413, 992, and 1286.
We're going prime.
Yeah, you're taking you're drafting them, and you know what they become. Who would you rather have?
Oh, drafting.
Now remember, Phil Kessel got drafted 5th overall. I was at that draft.
Yeah.
Pavelski went in the 7th round, like we talked about today. So, I mean, that just goes to show where two players can end up. Kessel also had a great career, but who would you rather take for their whole career?
Oh God, that's tough. I think I'm going to go Pavelski. I think not saying the War Pig's good in the room too, but I think I just take Pavelski at this point. I can't take Kessel.
I mean, Pavelski only ended up playing on 2 teams. Warpig was on 5 different teams. But I still think he should have won the. I think he should have won the Conn Smythe the one year that they won.
He should have.
I thought he should have won the Conn Smythe the year when they also had Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby on the same team. Like and
Matt Murray.
Yeah, he was great too.
Was ridiculous.
But like that's how good he was when he was on. Like he was amazing in the playoffs that year. He had 23 points. It was the second one, I think, of the back-to-backs. He had maybe it was the year before. One of the two, I thought he was just absolutely outstanding.
I thought it was the second. I think you're right because that.
No,
was
it was the first one. It was the first of the back-to-backs because that year he had 22 points and 10 goals. Crosby had 6 goals and 19 points, and Malkin had 6 goals and 18 points. So, I mean, he led the team in goals in the playoff. He was great in that playoff, the first year. And I saw, like, he outproduced Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin in a Stanley Cup run year. That says quite a bit about the Warpig, man. It's pretty impressive. Yeah. Pretty impressive. More longevity with Pavelski, though. I mean, that makes a good Penner's Pancake makes a good point over there as well. We'll save
War the Sea too. Like War the Sea.
In
a room with some pretty big personalities, I think.
Hey, save some of your questions. I did say we were going to get to them, but this flew by today, actually. I thought we'd have time to get to a few more things, but great discussion today here on 2 Guys and a Goalie here. Let's do this. Chris is over in the nasty chat. Hired or fired, Gager. Victor Arvidsson is going to get 25 goals, 25 assists, 50 points for the Oilers this year.
Oh, I hire it.
Oh, baby.
I set his total points. I would go 52.5, and I'm going over.
Right over.
Yeah.
I like it. We'll get to all of those odds when they are posted, and I mean all of them.
When have the Oilers had a really good one-timer from the off wing on the left side, Dustin?
Mark Letestu.
That's
the last guy because they don't.
That's the last guy.
They don't try it anymore.
No.
Right. So remember Letestu on that power play with all the young guys?
Slot machine.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. Nice guy too. That was.
You wait. Arvidsson's got a cannon from over there, it's ridiculous.
It'll be fun to watch. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. All right, coming up here, if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, you'll get a Nielson Show replay to take you through your afternoon. If you're watching over on YouTube, next time you'll see us will be tomorrow morning on the Nielsen Show. I got a travel day on Thursday. It's Cass back on Thursday?
Don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to check in with Cass on Thursday. Thursday show might just be a goalie.
Not goalie. All right.
I was wondering if the other boys will step in. Gager, enjoy episode 8 of The Acolyte, buddy. And I'll catch up with you next Tuesday, I guess.
Okay. And catch up on the boys.
I got lots of shows to watch, Gager. I'm watching House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones spinoff. And there was a dragon battle last night on episode 4, season 2. That is the most epic dragon battle I've ever seen in any show. I was on the edge of my seat. I said this morning, I sat up, like I was laying watching the show. I sat up on the edge of the couch. I was like, oh my God, it was good stuff. Real good show. That was a great episode.
We're such nerds.
I know. Okay, we have to go. Gager, have a good one, man. That's 2 Guys and a Goalie presented by GS Construction. 2 Guys and a Goalie again, noon on Thursday right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Have a great afternoon, everybody.